I want to start off, Mike. I have never asked you about your father, Bud Riley, and I recall I'm old enough to remember him at Oregon State with DeAndros and everything. And how much of an influence was your father on you getting into coaching in the first place?
I think all the influence in the world, Dwight. It was, it's one of those things you don't realize growing up, that the impact it might have on your life, your future. But for as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be a coach, and I always hung around the locker rooms when my dad was a high school coach, and then later when he went with DeAndros to Idaho and came to Oregon State, I was always around. And there was two things that, as I look back on it, and I've thought about it a lot, that impacted me. One of them was how much my dad loved the game. I mean, he loved to watch film. He just liked the strategy of the game. He liked all those parts. And he loved the players, his relationships with his players. And I don't think I ever looked at it exactly like that as a young kid, but I saw it. And it's probably the main reason for sure that I got into coaching.
But also it kind of, I think, maybe made you accustomed to the sort of nomadic lifestyle that coaches lead. So you were sort of preconditioned for that, right? Yeah,
I think that is true. I think that the family core becomes pretty strong because we did move a lot. And I was fortunate because my dad stayed here at Oregon State during all of my junior high and high school years, which was, for me growing up in Corvallis and being able to go to junior high and then play at Corvallis High School, that was really neat. But I think you develop some flexibility that way, and you have to marry right. So
which you did. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, exactly.
You ended up, you were a great quarterback here at Corvallis High, won a state title and all, and you ended up going to Alabama and playing for the great Bear Bryant. How does a kid from Corvallis end up going to Alabama?
Well, that goes back to kind of my dad's roots. He grew up in Alabama and was recruited after the war to the University of Idaho. He'd been playing junior college ball in Mississippi, recruited to Idaho by Dixie Howell, who had been a former Alabama quarterback.
Yeah.
So my dad's one of 7 brothers and sisters. He's the only one that left the South. So when I was growing up, we would, not very often, but once in a while, make that big trip to Alabama, see all of my aunts and uncles and my grandmother and cousins. And so I always had I was always an Alabama fan growing up. My uncle, this was probably the biggest deal, my uncle was a baseball coach at Alabama at the time. So I had a lot of ties back there. And how do you get from Corvallis to Alabama? You recruit yourself.
Did you do that?
Oh, yeah. I sent doctored up film. I cut out all the regular stuff and made it look good, and I talked them into it finally.
But you didn't play quarterback there.
No, I go to Alabama, Dwight, and I'm going there. I'm a left-handed quarterback. I'm going to be the next Kenny Stabler, right? 1 week. I was one of 7 freshman quarterbacks. 1 week, I was a defensive back, and that became my life.
Yeah, it's funny seeing you today without a cap on because I see you in games all the time. Yeah. I've never seen you during a game without the baseball cap. Yeah. You don't wear any of these cheesy visors. You wear a real baseball cap. What's the deal with that?
That is a good question. I've never talked about this much because nobody really ever asked me why, but that's my dad too. My dad always wore a baseball cap every practice, every game, and I just started doing it. I was coaching at Linfield College for Ad Rutschman and always had a ball cap on.
You coached JV baseball there too, didn't you?
Loved it.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. That was fun. I could still be at Linfield. That was the greatest thing at that time in my life. I couldn't have done anything better to learn how to be a coach than to work for Ad. And if you were going to coach at Linfield and teach there, Dwight, Ad had a rule. You had to coach 2 sports. He coached 2 sports. If you were going to coach football, you were also coaching track or baseball. So I did the JV baseball thing, drove the bus. My wife was a scorekeeper. It was a good life.
Let me go back to your time as a kid growing up in Corvallis, and it seems to me in those days, the Beavers were really the top dogs in the state. I mean, you beat the daylights out of the Ducks year after year. How tough is it to be right down the road from that juggernaut in Eugene now? It's obviously changed a whole lot.
Oh, yeah. A a lot of things have changed. You know, the Civil War game itself, Dwight, as you know, has always been a great game. And growing up, watching the game, I mean, totally into it. And I don't think there's anything worse for me as just a football fan than rooting for my dad's team and not having anything to do with it but being a fan, you know, just watching it, you know. So I've agonized for his games forever. And, of course, I remember that being big with the Ducks as a kid. And then now being involved in it and seeing the ramifications that have come up from this game. I mean, the previous 2 years to last year, we're playing the game for either team to go to the Rose Bowl. And then last year for them to go to the national championship game. And it is difficult because one of our goals is we got to beat our in-state rival. You know, that's the deal, and they are really good right now, and they've beaten us for 3 years in a row. So that's not easy to take, but it doesn't take away from how I appreciate the rivalry, how it's grown, how it's taken on more significance than just the championship of our state. I like that part of it, but very competitive about where we stand in it right now.
I have to ask you this, too. Don't you just once in a while get sick of the colors, sick of the mascot, sick of all the... I mean, there's a lot of fuss, and they're getting a lot of attention right now. Does it drive you a little bit crazy?
Well, frankly, this started, as I've seen it, when we first got going in the conference back in 2003. You saw it all happening with USC. They raised the bar. Pete Carroll's teams, you know, they're playing for the national championship. And you were at a place in the Pac-10 at that time that if you didn't rise up, you were going to get left way in the dust. I think it had helped everybody go after it in our league. And I think you see a lot of teams in our league through that decade now, just everybody's getting better. And the Ducks are doing it today. And the problem, you know, that you bring up for us is it's right down the road. I really, truly try not to let it be a problem. I can't. I've got too much to do, and we've got great work to do here at Oregon State.
Mike, it always seems to come down to money, too, no matter what sport you're talking about. And the new TV deal, obviously, for the Pac-12 conference is going to change that a little bit. You guys are going to have a little more money to deal with. Will that make the conference on the field a little more equitable, do you think?
I think it's got a chance to do that, you know, and I think those are factors when you're talking about marketing and facilities and all that. But I don't know how much it's going to affect our program, our teams. I try not to think about stuff like that too much. You know, I feel like, gosh, we've got a lot here. We got a beautiful stadium. I've got great practice fields. We got a weight room. We got goalposts. We got lines on our field. We can do what we need to do. I'm happy frankly, for the football teams throughout our conference, but you know, and I think it'll especially hit home with our whole department here and how it's going to affect, hopefully, a whole bunch of sports and make life a little bit easier for them. And I like how they're examining new ways to supplement players in their scholarships as they look forward because, you know, this is, you know, with rising prices and harder times, I think it's a good thing at least to look at.
So are you a pay the players guy?
No, I'm not like just more money, more stipend. But I think there is one thing that we should look at, and that's when they talk about tuition and fees opposed to cost of attendance. You know, the real cost when you talk about going to college, travel, stuff like that. Because if you put in really what it costs to go to school, it's more than tuition and fees and books. So if we supplemented each kid with a cost of attendance fee, I think that would really help their eating. You know, because in the Pac-12 conference, we can in our building feed them one meal a day, but that's the rule. So the rest of their meals, if they're living off campus, they have to take care of. They have to take care of their rent. And if we could supplement that for each scholarship athlete, a couple $100 a month, I think it would just make life that much better. As far as paying salary type stuff to them, I don't see how that would ever work. I think it would ruin a lot of programs. I think it would ruin a lot of the other sports in the universities.
A lot of rules in the NCAA right now, and it's like, and you talked about stipends and things like that, but I don't even, first of all, know how you guys coaching can even keep track. Huge rule book about that thick, and I think guys break rules sometimes without even realizing it. At least that's their story, and they stick to it. I also have heard these tragic stories, Mike, where I actually knew a basketball coach in the NCAA. One of his players had a father who was very ill. And this coach kept a plane ticket in his pocket all season for that player. And he told me, he said, don't ever write about it because we'll get put on probation or something. But if that kid's father's on his deathbed, I'm going to make sure that kid gets home to see his father before his father passes. And it really touched me that that's a violation, that you can't do something so basically good as that, you know. It must frustrate you at times.
Well, there are things that come up like that that are unfortunate, you know, and that rule book is that thick, Dwight, because of abuse somewhere, you know, and so, you know, I wish for a situation like you just described that there was a common sense rule. Now, there are probably new things available for hardship type cases. I know that when we've had cases where people have been sick or ill and that we can help a guy go home. So there might be some new stuff available that wasn't available at that time. But there is some common sense things that you wish could be examined on a case-to-case basis. But for the most part, our rules are good, you know, and I think that we've done a very good job in the NCAA of passing rules that almost make it a requirement that you're going to eventually graduate because you have to pass this many hours during the school year, this many hours in summer school, and you've got to have this percentage of degree by the time you're this age. And so if you're going to be in school playing football, you've got to meet these things. And so at the end of it, you know, you're going to graduate. And so we virtually graduate. If a guy stays in our program, they are graduating. We're doing that. And so the rules help everybody keep pace with that. So I think they're good. Recruiting rules are good. If we didn't have good recruiting rules about visiting homes and travel, I mean, we would absolutely have guys out 12 months of the year, 365 days, 24/7. I mean, it would be crazy. So I think that they're all good. Now, if everybody, you should keep the rules because in the end, you're not going to want to sit in a room by yourself and ask, was it worth it for me to break that rule? Because it's too costly. And, you know, you're talking about your job, your coach's jobs, your families, all that. So we just got to keep the rules, you know. And there are, because it is that thick and there's a lot of interpretation, there are times you're going to do something inadvertently. And then when you find that out, you got to tell the compliance guy, tell the AD, and take care of it. Now that's all a little bit idealistic because we all know the pressure that coaches have to win and do all that stuff. But in our world, that's kind of where we got to head. And I think there's a lot more good stories going on in college football than are the bad ones. The bad ones get the publicity, and the bad ones keep us on our toes, right? I really think that. Every time I read something, I don't think, you know, point the finger at them. I say, you know, there, but for the grace of God go I. We got to, you know, you got to use it all as a lesson in what you're doing daily.
All right, Mike, you've been here twice. And the first time you were here, you kind of got it turned around, and you got a great coaching offer to go coach the San Diego Chargers. And it didn't work out. And first of all, I want to ask you, why didn't it? Because I think everybody expected you to be a huge success. It's not as if people don't think you can coach in the National Football League. I think you know that. What happened in San Diego?
You know, first of all, I don't tell people about the time I was gone. I was with the Chargers. I went on mission for 4 years. And then got to come back.
Yes.
No, but, you know, I think that, frankly, I was ill-prepared for that job. You know, I think that the game is just different enough. You know, it's not different, but it's just different enough. The calendar's different. The roster's different. When I became a head coach for the first time in the Canadian Football League, I was pretty young. But I had been coaching in that league for a long time. And so I knew about the game, and the Canadian game is different. I knew about how to put a team together with the ratio that we had. I had, besides having coached in it myself, I'd been a guest coach when my dad coached up there for 6 years. So I knew that league, knew the players, and felt somewhat comfortable and confident when I became a head coach. This league was personnel, calendar, game. I was not ready for it. If I was ever going to do that, I would have been much better off having been a coordinator or coach in that league for 5 or 6 years. So that's part of it. And then, a lot of it from there is, I think, the timing of who that team is, and so we were going through a lot of personnel, a lot of different stuff as a change for the whole organization at that time. And we had some good moments, where we thought we were going to turn it around. And in our last year, when Norv Turner came and was our offensive coordinator, I loved that year because I loved working with Norv, learned a lot of football. We shared a lot of stuff together that was really good for me. And we were going great guns until we had a couple of injuries, which really hurt that year. But I think that's it in a nutshell. I don't try to think about it too much anymore. I try to look back on it as an experience where I met a lot of good people, and I was in the NFL and experienced that whole deal of being involved in that league, coaching those players. I met some of the greatest guys in the world. Junior Seau, getting to coach Junior Seau for a while. What a pro. A guy like Rodney Harrison, Jim Harbaugh and I, So the relationships I made, friendships I made, long-lasting deals, that was all really good. But I am so thankful to be back where I am. Because that doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. And I wanted to bring this up because Dennis Erickson succeeded you here, and then you succeeded him back when he went to the pros. And I have to tell you, Dennis told me the reason he went back to the NFL was it always just stuck in his craw that the first time around he didn't do as well. He wanted to win in that league to prove that he could.
Yeah.
And don't you ever have those feelings?
Well, you know what? I really don't, because I really did turn the page. I can totally understand what Dennis was saying. But frankly, I didn't like a lot of the other parts of it. It was very difficult for me, and if I couldn't predict it in the future, I didn't want to go through it again where there were so many fingers in the pie in an NFL team, lots of different stuff. I don't think we could ever form the team as I would see it, as one vision. We had 3 different general managers in San Diego in 3 years. Everybody's got a vision of this team and how it should go. And I like it here because I know that whatever we do, if we don't win or if we win, it's our doing. It's our recruiting. We pick the players, we coach the team, and I like that. And the other thing I like is we can have a program with the values that we want in the program. We can do that, and coaching college age kids too. For me, as I get older, we're really fortunate to be with them at this time in their life. This is a special time, and frankly, we can be more than football coaches. I mean, we're getting these guys ready for their life. Football's our nugget. We love it. I love the game. We love to coach it. They love to play it. But our work here is bigger than that. And I only realized that, Dwight, over time. Because when you first get a job, you're trying to survive. You're trying to put your football stuff in. And I finally allowed myself a period of time to establish these things and see what they mean to everybody. The players, the coaches, the families, and to surround our team with the best people I can. If I've done anything well at Oregon State, I've hired really good people. And whether it's the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator or the equipment guy, I know I've got good people around these kids. And so for me, that's a good picture. And that's all I need. I don't need to go anywhere else.
All right, let me ask you this now in conclusion. Here's the thing, Mike. You're a good guy, and you do things right, and everybody knows that. You're not going to ever get this school in any trouble, at least consciously, and you know how to deal with players and all that. So I would say that you don't have as much pressure on you as some coaches might people know what you do and they stick with you. By the same token, what kind of self-induced pressure is there on you this season after not making a postseason last year?
That is a really good question. And boy, I don't feel like I've been anywhere a long time. I feel like every day's new, every season's new, and I like that feeling. I would think if I thought I was just going to roll the ball out again, Dwight, it would be time to take off.
Really?
You know? Yeah, because I love the challenge of doing well. I don't, we want to win this conference championship, and we want to continue to build this program. I think we've got, like I mentioned, these things in place that I really like for a program, but the football part of it, we want to go now. We want to win. And we want to win big and win this conference championship. So that's my challenge. And I look back, and I should have recognized that from a guy like Ad Rutschman. Ad could have gone anywhere and coached, right? Yeah. I mean, he was one of the most successful coaches in college football history. But he did it at a place where not everybody knows that. And he could have gone and done it anywhere else. But the challenge for him was, what could he do the next year? And his appetite, his hunger for coaching, man, I've never been around a guy that taught football better to kids than Ad Rutschman. So he took that challenge right where he was at and tried to grow it. That's what we're doing.
Okay, Mike, now here's the deal. There's a men's clothing store in Portland called Estes, okay? It's where everybody at Comcast Sportsnet gets their stuff. And it's a Beaver that owns it, actually, Tony Spear.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to fix you up with a tie for being so kind as to come on. It's not orange and black, because he said, oh, no, those guys have all got their orange and black ties. Give them something he can wear somewhere else.
He's right about it. It is refreshing not to have something in the closet, and tell Tony I appreciate it very much.
Thanks a lot, Mike. It's really been a pleasure.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah.